Hello, everyone. Britton here. This is not Britton's Hangout Hour, but this is another discussion video. I'm here with ISamwise today. How you doing, man?
Doing all right, doing all right. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good. So I bet you're wondering, what are you guys doing here? Well, we're going to be talking about True Grit by Charles Portis. I reread this book as a part of June on the Range, even though this will probably be coming out on Wednesday, so not June on the Range. It'll be July by that point. But I had wanted to reread True Grit for a while because it's there's kind of like the holy trinity of Western novels. It's like Lonesome Dove, Blood Meridian, and then this book.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what I've seen. But and I'm like, Sam, I know you like True Grit. Would you
Yeah.
like to talk about it with me? And you're like, yes, I do. So that's how we came up with this video. So that's how we ended up here.
Yeah. Nope. Absolutely. So let me see here. When did you first read this, Britain?
Well, I mean, I'll admit I was familiar with the movies before I read the book. I think I read
Hmm.
the book for the first time in high school because
Okay.
I had a Oklahoma history class,
Mm.
and our teacher was like, "Hey, True Grit actually takes place technically in the Indian Territory, which is called Oklahoma nowadays." So I'm like, "Sweet," and I remember liking it. I don't know if I really like appreciated it. I remember having a much stronger appreciation for it. You know, in this next read that I've done,
Hmm.
it also moves really fast. Like I read this in
Yeah.
like 2 or 3 days. Like
Hmm.
I think, if I recall, I think I also inspired you to pick it up again.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. So I read it last year, I think,
Mhm.
for the first time. And like you said, I mean, my copy's, yeah, 250 pages. So it's fairly short. It moves very fast, and I don't know. It's kind of odd because you said like it's a Western classic. Oh, by the way, like I wore about as Western of a shirt as I got, which is I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I wore this on purpose. Come and take it.
Most
Um,
America shirt ever.
that's right. Uh, but one of the weird things about this book is just like how beloved it is
Hmm.
for what on the surface, like a lot of people would say is a pretty simple story. We've seen the wolf and cub, old grizzled guy
Hmm.
taking care of a younger girl through dangerous circumstances. We've seen that before. Um, but this is a favorite novel of Donna Tartt. She narrates the audiobook of it.
Hmm.
And then even more in like fantasy circles, like Brian Lee Durfee has listed it as a favorite. I know Scott Lynch highly recommends the book, and so it's interesting to me that there's more to it than what you might expect on a surface level, and even people that we tend to admire and look up to as like other authors say
Hmm.
the same.
Yeah, it's kind of funny you mentioned Donna Tartt. She did the afterword on my copy,
Mm,
so that was kind of fun to read.
yeah.
Um, Not a book I'd expect because she tends to do like those like kind of like secret history kind of books. I guess
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah. I mean, it's how would I describe it? I would be very surprised if like Larry McMurtry wasn't like, huh, I should do something like that, for like Lonesome Dove or something like that. Because
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say it's like exactly a dead on for Lonesome Dove, but like there is a lot of parts of this book where it's just people sitting around talking.
Yeah. Yeah, and for the big three like westerns that you named, like Lonesome Dove is the one I haven't read. So
Oh well,
Blood Meridian, this one. But then yeah, not Lonesome Dove. But yeah, I mean I know that Portis is well regarded in Western circles too. So I wouldn't be shocked if you read it. Um,
there are also two movies that have come out.
mhm.
One from the '60s, another one from like 2010. I think I remember seeing that in theaters. As a matter of fact,
Okay.
um, it I like the remake more. It's kind of a rare thing. I think the remake is, and considering like the book, I think the remake is closer to the book than the original movie is. But it's an interesting history with True Grit because I mean, I don't know if you've seen either one of the movies.
I've seen. the remake. So kind of like you said you'd seen the movies first. I watched the Coen Brothers one. Goodness, probably 5 years ago, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So not when it came out, but a while ago, and really liked it. Actually, like it. It this may be heresy, but like it may be my favorite Coen Brothers movie. It's not their flashiest, it's not their sexiest, but I love just like how perfectly executed it is and how great of a translation it is from the story on page to on screen. And what's funny is that the Coen brothers are like really heavily influenced in terms of their style and aesthetics, and even probably a little bit their worldview by Flannery O'Connor, the
Mm.
Southern Gothic
I've
writer.
wanted to
And
read
as I
her
was
for a long time
yeah,
because.
so I just finished up Good Man is Hard to Find, that short story collection of
Mm,
hers. And so as I was reading this, I had Flannery O'Connor in the back of my mind. And I was like, this reads like if Flannery O'Connor wrote a Western. There's some of the morality tale type
mm,
story that she has in here, but then there's also the type of personality that the characters have and some of her
mm-hmm.
sass. So yeah, that to me that's at least how it read. So I was like, oh, well, that makes sense why the Coens were drawn to this too, since I know they take influence from her.
Yeah, it's I mean, I will say no one says "fill your hands, you son of a bitch" quite like John Wayne can. I mean,
Fill your hand, you son of a bitch!
it'll never be topped. But yeah, I think the remake is a much closer adaptation to the book. I guess we should go more into the book before too long, because like I don't want to just bring up the movies over and over.
Sure.
Like, oh, this is just like the book. Though I will note, sadly, there isn't a bear guy in this book. That really sucks. Um, and it's also interesting reading this because I mean it's kind of hard not to think about the movies a little bit,
Mhm.
but it was interesting because like Rooster Cogburn is described in the book as being like in his 40s.
Mhm.
So it was I don't know if I don't know how many video games you play. So I just kept thinking like Roger Clark as Rooster Cogburn more than like John Wayne or Jeff Bridges.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't play. I'm very bad at video games, so when I
Fair
do
enough.
play, I get discouraged very quickly. So
He played Arthur in Red Dead Redemption 2.
okay, I was wondering. I was like, I know that's a Western game, so
Um, but yeah. So what is this book about? It's pretty simple. Young girl named Maddie Ross. She narrates this as an older woman. Her father gets murdered by a no good, rotten scoundrel by the name of Tom Chaney, who's also goes by another name. I don't think Tom Chaney is his actual name. So she goes after him to get justice for her father's murder, and she ends up recruiting a guy named Rooster Cogburn, who is this kind of tough, not the most pleasant. Uh, he's described in the narrative as the meanest U.S.
Yeah.
Marshal. So
she specifically doesn't go for the best or the most efficient. When Cogburn is described as the meanest of the marshals, she's like, oh, that's the guy I want.
Which I find really interesting because it made me wonder, and I don't know what you thought about this. Like, do you think that Maddie is a reliable narrator?
Well, that's the age-old question. So,
Which I it gets kind of irritating because it's like, man, like, is there like what is a reliable narrator?
Right.
Like, everybody's biased on some level, like whatever. But I'm curious what you think of this because like I don't think she's like actively like gaslighting the reader, as
Right.
a Humbert or anything like that. Like I think her depiction is honest. Like that's her honest thoughts on it. But like there are a couple moments I'm kind of like there's like some holes there.
Mhm. Well, it's kind of like anybody telling their own story back. They're gonna, if something happens that makes them look bad, maybe they wouldn't eliminate it entirely, but maybe they downplay it a little bit more.
Mhm.
If there was a moment that reflects well on them, then maybe they emphasize. So in that way, that all of us are unreliable, and all of us are talking through our own bias. I mean, Maddie certainly does.
Mhm.
So
It's kind of interesting because, like, you know, you meet Maddie, who is kind of this kind of tough, no nonsense, very deeply, devoutly religious woman. But on the one, and she says earlier in the book, nothing is free except for the grace of God.
That's right.
But she specifically goes for the meanest U.S. Marshal that she can find. And I thought that was really interesting. I don't know if it's necessarily like hypocritical or anything, but I thought that was like a really interesting, contradictory a little bit. I don't know. I don't know what you thought of that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you bring that up because that's something that stands out to me. Too specifically when I mentioned Flannery O'Connor a second ago. O'Connor's famous for saying that all of her stories, or at least most of them, were about characters encountering grace in one sense or another. So sometimes that comes through in like one of her famous stories, family being held up by some outlaws and the whole family being murdered. And it's like, what, really, Flannery? Like, that's a like grace there? And it's like, well, like it shows up in ways that you don't expect. And so in her stories, it can show up in very comedic ways, unexpected ways. Sometimes that's grace directly from, as Maddie mentions, from God. Sometimes it's grace between other people. What's interesting here is that, like with Rooster Cogburn, like he's the meanest, but also like she hires him. You know, it's not his service isn't free. It's something that she hires from him. And yet, so if you think of grace, which often is defined as like unmerited favor upon somebody, like Cogburn, by the end of the story, repeatedly is showing unmerited favor to Maddie. By the end of the book, he's going above and beyond what she hired him for, both in rescuing her at the end of the story and then saving her out of the spoilers for True Grit here.
I was about to say, we're going to probably spoil the whole thing, by the way, but
yeah,
I mean, I'd be surprised if you haven't at least known what True Grit is. But yeah, we're going to, in case you haven't read it or watched any of the movies or, you know anything about this, we're going to spoil the whole thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, so saving her out of the snake pit and then rushing her, all night long through, which, not to bring up the movie again, but is done very memorably in that sequence in the Coen Brothers movie. Yeah. Rushing her to the doctor so that her life can be saved, although she loses the arm. And right there, like that's the example of, well, like, guess what? When Maddie needed grace, like it came to her free. It wasn't something that she could pay Rooster for.
Yeah, and it came from like a rough and tumble, one-eyed, kind of a jerk, but he's got a good heart in there. Very deep, though. It's very deep. Yeah. It's very deep in there. But yeah,
interesting how this
there were some times I was reading this, I'm like, gosh, she's kind of a judgmental bitch at times.
Yeah, and it's funny how for her this is as it seems from the way she tells the story, this is like the defining tale of like her life. Like this is sort of everything, and a part of that's because she's injured at the end of it permanently. But you almost get the impression when she catches you up at the end of the story of like, oh, and here's what Rooster did, and here's what LaBeef did. You almost get the impression that for them this was just like just another like Wednesday, It's just another like it's a couple of weeks that they did this thing and then their lives went on. And so just for her, like Rooster saving her life means all the world to her. But for him, it's just like, it's my job. It's what I did. And then I went off and did another bunch of nonsense for a few years, which I thought was interesting too.
Yeah, it's, and reading this time, I kind of was thinking about what does the title True Grit mean? And like one of the things I noticed is like, there's almost this kind of discussion on what grit means, and you kind of see it not just in Rooster, because obviously at first when you think of True Grit, you think it's referring to Rooster a little bit.
Yeah.
Because, she even says, like, I want somebody with true grit. Ha ha ha. Yeah. Title drop. But I also
the title of the movie.
It's the title of the thing. Yeah. But I think that it also refers to Maddie as well, because like she is, I mean, she doesn't take nothing from nobody,
Yeah.
She'll take it as much as she gives it,
Yeah.
I mean, and she's still like a kid and all in the narrative anyway. though she's narrating it as an older lady, because like she mentions like, oh man, one that made me particularly laugh. One of her like asides that she likes to do is she's like, oh, that Presbyterian gentleman Woodrow Wilson was president. You know, things were so good. I just laughed because I hate Woodrow Wilson. But it makes sense because like she's also a devout Presbyterian. But I was just like, oh God. Anyway, but she's also has a lot of grit, just not in the same way that Rooster does.
You know, and that's what helps her survive.
Because, like, I mean, it takes a lot of balls to, you know, to go out on this very dangerous, hazardous mission with these two guys, with these two kind of rough and tumble guys.
And that's what helps her like survive when she's out in the wilderness with these guys, and helps keep up with them as they like try to continually leave her behind.
Yeah,
and she maybe not outsmarts them, but at least keeps up with them. But also, like, you get the impression that it helps her survive afterwards too. You know, as a disabled lady, you know, having lost the arm. But also, it's not, like you said, it's not entirely a positive thing, or at least not in how she displays, like you said, the grit. Because she does, in the end of the book, she kind of, it almost ends on a dour note. Like, she kind of ends up alone, and, you know, isn't married, doesn't really have any family that she lives with, and is just kind of like a you know, an old maid who lives by herself. And it's like, oh man, that's kind of a bit of a sad note to end on. But
yeah, but like she seems more like peace. She seems at peace with herself though. So like I don't like get as sad now in the like, you know, the True Grit 2010 movie. It's like really bitter. You're just like, damn, that's really sad. But yeah, I know what you mean. I think really if Maddie kind of has, like, her grit is very admirable, because, you know, and I do like that, like, she doesn't drag the other two down, you know, like, she's, you know, sometimes she'll be like, yeah, you know, I want to, you know, or she'll kind of, you know, sass to, she has some teenage witticisms for LaBeef and Rooster Cogburn, but, like, she doesn't drag him down, you know, which I appreciate.
Where is it? I'm trying to remember. I have this marked, and I can't find it now. Man, I can't find it now. But it's the bit when she's arguing when she first meets LaBeef.
Oh, and, God, yeah.
Yeah, and she's like, wow, it'll take a lot more people than just me and Rooster Cogburn to hunt down this guy. He's clever. And she's like, I thought him to be like kind of slow and stupid myself. So it's surprising you weren't able to catch him really, you know, and just like poking the bear.
He's like, I'm a Texas Ranger. He's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, can't find it. That's all right.
It's real funny too. There's some really great. I'm kind of a sucker for dialogue. There's a lot of great dialogue in this book.
Yeah,
like one of my favorite bits of the book is when we first meet Rooster and he's at the trial, and the guy's asking him like, how many people you shot? And he's like, shot or killed. And like it's just a whole basically like so like did he pick up the gun, did he jump you? And he's like, hey, he jumped me, all right, like it's so you can tell that Rooster's the kind of guy like he'll just shoot you and be done with it.
Speaking back to the with Rooster though, the other interesting thing is, you know, we mentioned, sorry, what?
Oh, sorry. I think you were about to say what I was going to bring up, but I wanted you to finish what you were saying real quick before.
Sure. No, I was just going to say, like, you know, he, like you said, he's the meanest. He will just kind of like shoot you if he's like suspicious or if you tick him off the wrong way. But also when he's in the cabin with the two criminals that he's like interrogating, or the two outlaws, like, there's another sense where you get like a different side of him, maybe not like a softer side, but like some of that grace coming through, where, you know, he says like, hey, you know, you're going to die, but if you help me out, like, I'll make sure your body doesn't just get like, you know, eaten up by wolves. Like, we'll make sure you we'll bury you. And this is in the middle of winter. Like, the ground's frozen. And if you've ever tried digging in frozen ground, it's like,
it's not easy.
Merciless, you know, like, so I do that for my job professionally during the winter. I'll like chisel into like frozen ground. So I heard him say that, and I'm like, a grave in winter? You're kidding. So
yeah, no, it's the part with Moon, I think is the guy's name, and the other dude. It's a really sad scene too, because like you can tell that like Moon isn't like a bad guy. He just got caught up with a bunch of ne'er-do-wells. Though I should note, it's probably not a good idea to go like, you know what, I'm gonna tell him what I know, and he's like, I will kill you if you tell him, and he's like, I'm gonna tell him. I think he's a bit down.
Well,
fails.
Maybe not the smartest.
Probably wasn't a smart idea to like kill the guy right in front of a marshal who has a gun. And we'll shoot you.
yeah.
Which again, it's kind of like I don't know if like it's kind of like she like delves into the world of sinners to catch another sinner, I guess.
Yeah.
Because like there's a line in the book that she references from. She references the Bible a couple times, as a matter of fact, because she would bring up certain verses, and it's kind of funny. It reminds me, my dad. He likes to watch. He sometimes likes to watch, sermons online, and there's this one particular guy, I forget the guy's name, but he's kind of one of those, how do you describe it? Kind of those like fire and brimstone kind of preachers. And my dad, and I'm like, why are you watching this? This is kind of ridiculous. And he's like, hey, the guy knows what he's talking about, all right? Like, whatever you want to say about him, he knows what he's talking about. Same thing with Maddie. I don't know if I agree with her interpretations of the world, but she knows the Bible. I'll give her that. Yeah. There's a logic she's working under.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because they kind of almost highlight that with the Coen Brothers movie. In the soundtrack to it is basically just the main theme to the movie is the old like Protestant hymn, "Leaning on the Everlasting Arms."
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
which obviously ties into is as a great choice for it because it obviously ties into the theme of it of Rooster like is carrying her in his arms at the end, and obviously she loses an arm at the end of the book. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, there's definitely some things, and loses the arm when you said like going into the world of sinners. She loses the arm where like falling into the snake pit, getting her revenge. Like, wonder what that could be.
Yeah. There's a lot of biblical symbolism in this story, and I mean, it is not subtle, I should note, because again, she brings up the Bible several times in this. But what I was trying to say is, like the line, if I recall right, is "the wicked flee where none pursueth."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which there's no epigraphs in this book, unfortunately. But like, if there was an epigraph, it's probably that.
Yeah.
It is an epigraph in the movie, but it's not in the book, unfortunately. Or well, it is in the book, but she just kind of mentions it as a
like a reference.
Yeah. But yeah, it's kind of interesting that this kind of like because like the sheriff even goes like, best tracker is this one dude who's like part Native American, part Indian. It's like the less PC term nowadays. Mm-hmm. There's this other guy who's pretty good. He's probably the most competent. Meanest, though, Rooster Cogburn. And she's like, I'm going to go with Cogburn. And I'm curious, like... And that's the one thing that always, like, kind of... Not threw me off, but I was always curious, like, why him specifically? Aside from just True Grit. Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, I have theories. Like, I mean, I think it was kind of... She was like, okay, I'm going to get this, like, no good miscreant Tom Chaney. I guess I'll get someone who's kind of mean in that sense. Yeah,
I mean that could be. I always kind of took it as she's angry, she's bitter, and so she's looking for like somebody also who's gonna get angry like alongside of her.
That's
somebody
true
who's
as
not
well.
Gonna give up.
She's a very straightforward character. Like, I'm not saying she doesn't have like hidden depths. I mean, True Grit kind of refers to her as well. Yeah, but she's very straightforward. She's very like, Tom Chaney did this thing. We're gonna take him down. We're gonna hang him. It's gonna be a thing.
It's not good enough that we hang him. Look, he has to be hanged for killing my dad, not for this senator or the senator's
not
dog.
Not for this dumb senator and his dog. Yeah. Screw them. Taking him back to Fort Smith, which of course has her clash with LaBeef. I'm curious what you think of LaBeef, because like LaBeef, there are certain moments in this book where I'm just like, that is freaking weird and creepy, dude. Like, I don't know if it's intentionally that way, because he goes like, hey, if you weren't so mouthy, I'd steal a kiss from you. I'm like, what is wrong with you?
That's right. Earlier tonight, I gave some thought to stealing a kiss from you, though you are very young and sick and unattractive to boot. But now I'm of a mind to give you 5 or 6 good licks with my belt. One would be as unpleasant as the other, I replied.
It's It's like, what was that? Like, look, okay, I get it. Standards were different at that time, but like, you're literally like badly flirting with a child. Like, that's freaking weird, man.
She's like, what, 14, something like
Yeah,
that? So
I'm like, what are you doing? And then and then later on, he just gets irritated with her and like spanks her ass with like a switch or something. And then I guess Rooster is like, well, screw it. She ain't. We tried. She's not going anywhere.
Well, that's the moment where like Rooster, we all come to love him because Beef's like, giving her a spanking, and she's like, "Are you gonna let him do this, Marshall?" He's like, "No, I don't think I will," and like pulls his gun out on.
Yeah,
yeah, Rooster.
Yeah, I think it was that moment where she like earns his respect.
Yeah.
Because like on the like I don't know if it's ever like, because in the movie he's kind of like annoyed with her until she like proves like she's not playing, she'll follow them. But it's kind of funny in the book because like there's some really sad parts they left out because there's some really great bits where they're just hanging out in the like Chinese shop where the Chinese guy hangs out at, and we learned that Rooster likes sweets.
Yeah, that's right.
And they're like negotiating price.
Yeah, and you have the whole story of like Rooster and his wife and trying to run the restaurant and that not working, and him just like, yeah, like he's, I get it, he's old and curmudgeonly and stuff, but like he's also not had it particularly easy either,
Yeah, he fought with like Confederate guerrillas back in the day and during the war, and she's like, "How was that?" And he was like, "Not good."
Yeah, not great.
Not good.
Yeah.
But going back to what you were saying on why she recruited him, I do think you're right. I do think she's angry and she just wants to like see like, Rooster Cogburn like whip up on Tom Chaney or something.
Yeah.
It's really funny like when she finally meets Tom Chaney again, and he's just like, and she's like, "Oh, and I was at the riverbank, getting some stuff, and there's Tom Chaney right there."
Yeah,
and I'm just like, it's like,
very much like just almost a chance meeting.
Yeah, it's
like
so
unexpected.
funny. It's like, it's all again kind of going with the like Christian. It was almost like by God or something like that. Like there he is.
We've done all this tracking, and then he literally just like walks up to you at the end of the book.
Yeah, and he's like, "Hey, I know you."
Yeah.
I have to kind of echo something Doug Walker said, because he did a old versus new a long time ago about True Grit. And he's like, one of the things that's kind of neat about this book is like the villain isn't like a calculating mastermind.
Yeah.
He's just some drunk idiot with a gun.
Yeah. And Tom Chaney is super, I almost said Dick Cheney there. But like Tom Chaney's super whiny too.
Yeah, I know.
Like, they're like, "All right, Tom, stay here." He's like, "Oh, do I have to? You're gonna leave. Everything's turned against me." It's like, dude, like you're somebody who needs to like get some grit. Like, man up a little bit,
I have a thing. I don't think Ned or any of the other guys like him. I think they were like expecting him to like get shot so they could be like, "Hey, Rooster." If I recall, I think if I have like a theory that like Ned was just cutting Tom off. He's basically like, "Let's let that idiot get caught, all right, and we can do our own thing over here." Except Rooster's like, "I'm gonna kill every single one of y'all."
Yeah. No, and you mentioned like and him being all whiny and stuff, like
yeah, he's just,
but it's also really funny. Like you read it, and you're just like,
I just want to smack him. Like, get a grip, bro.
And like Portis, and it's tricky, especially in like a written book, to get humor because you don't have the delivery of a comedic actor or of a somebody reading the line. But yeah, there's a lot of bits in this that are fun. Like my favorite has got to be Maddie negotiating for the mules.
Oh yeah,
and just like making him pay more and more and more, and then the next day going to like or later on going to buy like one of them back, and then like bringing the price down and down. She's like, "Well, they're not as valuable now." It's just like, yeah, she's a little savage.
Yeah, no, she ain't playing. She ain't playing, and the guy's just like, "Oh my gosh, fine." And she does the old, "Well, I have a lawyer, and he's really good, and he's gonna take all your money." And he's like, Fine. Take them. Just go away.
Just leave me alone. So what we're saying is Maddie is the original Karen.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't record at me. You can't put your phone down.
Wait till I call your manager.
That's right.
I was shocked she didn't do that. No, it's but yeah, no, it's really funny when she, he's like, I ain't giving you Wicked Pegasus, and then finally he's like, fine, take the money, go away. Like, I'll take it.
Yeah. Yeah.
True Grit, haha, and even when they're just kind of, fumbling around in the woods, looking for Tom Chaney, like, it doesn't feel like a, waste. There's a lot of, like, fun character interactions. And, of course, LaBeef and Rooster Cogburn are always bickering with each other because reasons.
Yeah. Always having that dick measuring contest.
Yeah, pretty
much. Like... I'd be impressed about that story about drinking water out of a rut if it wasn't the 20th time I've heard it from a Texan, So how do you feel about the Oklahoma representation in this book, Britton? Did it, like, give you satisfaction to see people making fun of Texas?
I mean, it's always fun seeing people make fun of Texas, but, I mean, admittedly, like, it's like, I mean, I enjoyed it because it's like, Oklahoma doesn't get, like, talked about very much. Unless it's like Grapes of Wrath and it's about people leaving Oklahoma, and you're just like, oh man. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good, though a lot of it has to do with the fact that it was like the kind of haven for Native Americans for a long time. Like, there's the part where they meet the Native American sheriff, and he's like, we have some bodies we need to bury. Could you do that? And he's like, yeah, cool. Yeah, I mean, there wasn't as many flatlands as you would have expected, because Oklahoma is very flat at times.
Sure. Yeah, no, that makes sense there.
But I liked it. I thought it was really neat to see. So it was. Oh, sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say, Maddie and the characters definitely feel like from a place in time. We can definitely get that in how the way that they're written. I don't feel like they're just like characters from the 20th century when he wrote it that are plucked out and just put it, like, they have a lot of personality that comes through.
Yeah, she didn't go like, screw you, war pig. It's like, that's not right. That's not right. Yeah, it kind of makes me think of, I was watching, because I think it was me and you who got her to read True Grit, but a while back she was talking about, on a stream, that, like, people back then were, like, better read and, like, better spoken than Tori from Tori Talks. She was like, yeah, people, were better spoken and written or read than we are now. And I'm just like, and it's kind of there because, like, the language is, I don't want to say it's flowery, but it's very, like, precise, Yeah. Like, there's not a lot of slang or what's the word I'm looking for? I mean, there was probably slang during that time, but, like, there's not a lot of slang or, like, it's I have, or like, I'll just read, hold on. No, it was not I. She was drowned, they say. I am not surprised. Like, it's, this is just from a random page. Like, they don't say I'm not surprised, Like,
and I said, that does add a sense of, like, place and time.
Exactly, yeah.
Over the course of the book.
Yeah, definitely. Like, even Rooster Cogburn, who's kind of like the, I don't want to say he's trash, but, like, he's, the kind of, like, rough and tumble. Like, even he has moments where he's, like, waxing poetic about his life and just where he's coming from.
Yeah. Well, I've never seen the show Deadwood. But one thing that I know about it is the creator said, when he was writing it, he was doing some, like, historical research on what swearing at the time was like. And instead, he said they chose not to go with historically accurate slang and profanity and went with, modern, like, F-bombs and stuff like that. Because he said the profanity of the day sounded like what you'd expect from, like, Yosemite Sam.
Yeah.
Jumpin' Jehoshaphat and that type of... And I'm like, man, but, like, if that's the place in time, like, I don't want to sound like he's, I don't want these characters to feel like they're people that I work with in 2025. Like, I want them to feel like they're older. So
Yeah, it's Deadwood's great, but yeah, no, it's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting because like if I recall right, I think like most like terrible swears are like religious related, if I
Yeah.
remember right.
Christ's body, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like even in like Blood Meridian, kind of going back to that, there's a line where he goes, "God's blood, man."
Yeah.
Here he goes, "God's blood, man." I don't know if they say that in this book. Like usually, like the worst swears you'll get in this book is like "damn" or "son of a bitch." Like there's one moment where like Maddie's like eating dinner and this guy like is just kind of talking about some of his adventures and this just random dude just goes, "You rat-headed son of a bitch," and then she goes, "That was it." I'm just like, what?
That's right. I remember that.
Like,
yeah.
what?
It was like, okay.
And she's like, "I didn't want to get involved in that, so I just went to sleep."
Yeah. And like you definitely get the feeling of like, you think this isn't a story set in the modern day, so it's not just like, oh, Maddie can phone a friend.
Yeah,
call him.
right. Yeah,
You
I
can't
was
just,
kind
she
of like,
doesn't have
"Oh
a
man,
credit
she should
card.
text somebody." I'm like, "Oh yeah, we're in Old West times."
So it's like, wow, like she really has to like fend for herself and like survive hundreds of miles away from the closest like friends or family or anything like that. And so there's a certain amount of like, wow, she's pretty scrappy, being able to survive and keep up out in Oklahoma there.
Yeah, no, I remember thinking through the book, I'm like, yeah, why is she this way? Like, because, it becomes really clear in the book, like, Maddie does not care about the why. Like, she cares about the what, she's always talking about what you do, or, like she says at the beginning of the book, nothing is free in this world except for the grace of God. But I mean, my guess would be is that like her dad died, so she had to grow up pretty fast.
Yeah.
But like I don't know. Do you think she was like that before the events of the story?
Well, if she was, you kind of get the impression that her mom isn't the strongest person. And her mom's having a hard time coping, and so she's almost having to like step up to the plate more because of that.
Yeah, no, like there's a couple times she talks about her mom. And she's like, "Yeah, mom was like freaking out back in Fort Smith, and like I don't want to deal with any of that."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Jeez."
Yeah.
Her husband just got shot, bro.
Right. Well, hey, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, and I she even like describes like what happened. Like Tom Chaney just like grabbed a gun and shot him in the face. And you're just like, "Geez, man."
Well, because I don't know what the John Wayne version does, but at least in the Coen Brothers, it just starts in he's dead.
Yeah.
That's all. He shot him. That's all. And in True Grit, in the book, you get the impression, or she like spells out of like, it wasn't like he was out to like, I'm gonna murder, but is like drunk, is stupid, is has a gun when he shouldn't.
Was having a bad night, basically.
Yeah. And so that's why when they call like Tom Chaney like a coward throughout the book, it's not just like, oh well, he shot somebody in cold blood. It's like, no, he's literally like a yellow-bellied coward.
Yeah. And she even like later on is like, "Man, we were nice to you. Why'd you do this?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "I don't." And he kind of does this whole like, "Oh, woe is me" thing, but he also is like, I don't even know. Like he just he even admits like he doesn't even know why he did it.
Yeah.
And it's like, God, this sucks. There was a part of me that's like, man, Maddie, it's not worth it. Like, and that's the thing. Interestingly enough, like it's very simple. Like she does get her guy, but like, what did it solve? I mean, she got justice for her dad, but
her dad's still dead.
Yeah,
like it doesn't bring.
She lost her arm.
Yep.
Rooster's basically like, screw this, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And LaBeef's like, I'm just going to take the body back to Texas. See you guys later. All right.
Yeah.
Bye-bye now.
She walks away with, scars. Literally and figuratively.
Yeah, and it's like what? I mean, yeah, I know that the whole like vengeance doesn't solve anything. Like that's very tried and true. But like, what did it solve though? Because it kind of ends on an interesting note. Because she kind of. I mean, I don't want to jump to the ending. There's still some stuff I want to talk about, but like I do think it's interesting that like she's at peace with it by the end. I don't really think she gets a sense of like, oh, this is like this really traumatic thing that happened. But there is this sense of like it's unresolved. There's something unresolved by the ending. Which is hinted when she says time just gets away from us.
Yeah, no, that's for sure.
I mean, what do you think of that?
No, I think that's about right. What is it? I think it's always attributed to Buddha. I don't know who said it first, but the idea of bitterness is like drinking poison and then hoping that the other person dies.
That's true. Yeah.
It's like, well, like you said, what good did it do you? I listened to there's a guy that I listen to. He's a therapist, but he also runs a podcast where he'll like take in daily callers. And that's one of the things that people will say is like, oh, my parents were mean to me growing up. Maybe not abusive, but weren't very kind or loving, or they restricted me in this area. And you know what? I just want to sit them down and like tell them off and, say like, screw you, mom and dad. And one of the things that he'll always say to them is he'll be like, or whatever the situation is, whether it's getting mad at your boss or a sibling or your spouse. And he's always like, all right, like describe to me exactly how you see this playing out in your mind. He's like, and as soon as they do, like everybody starts to realize like, oh, I've got my own assumptions for how I'm going to feel when this happens. And that's absolutely not going to be, this isn't going to bring me the peace I think it will, flipping everybody off as I walk through this.
Yeah.
And there's a similar thing here with Maddie,
Yeah, like, it's kind of like, I don't know. Yeah, she, it's kind of funny because like in the book it's a little different from what I remember from the movies, because like in the Cohen version, I should say, she just kind of shoots him and then it's over. She just like shoots him off the ledge. In the book, he's kind of like, he comes back to like taunt her a little bit, and then Rooster shows up and just like kills him. It's like that. Yeah, that's done with that.
Yeah, I forgot that it was different. When he was still I was like, oh yeah, how does this end? Yeah, I forgot.
I had the same way. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. It's kind of funny because like Tom Chaney is like 25, I think she said. And I'm like, I'm gonna turn 25 in like about 10 months from now. Like, oh my god, like that just blew my mind.
That's definitely younger than Josh Brolin.
Definitely, because like I think Josh Brolin was like in his 40s.
Right, yeah.
I'm like, geez, but it's interesting. What did you think of Ned Pepper, who kind of is who we'd expect as like a Western villain, the kind of more charismatic, mastermind kind of guy?
Yeah, I mean, he's well written. He serves the purpose in the story as being sort of this like secondary antagonist that has a history with Rooster.
Yeah,
and we're sort of like picking up the pieces as we go through the story. I don't personally find him terribly memorable, but that may be more of a me thing than anything else. But he serves his part in the plot just well. Yeah,
one of my another part I really enjoyed is the shootout at the cabin when he shows up and LaBeef's like, oh no, and he shoots. And then like Rooster's like, that idiot. I'm gonna kill him when we're done here. Yeah. He like, I think he like accidentally shoots the horse, and later on he's like, bro shot my horse, like I liked that thing.
When you have like what is it? They pull up to the cabin and there's like is it a whistle that they are trying to signal to see if you're inside or not? You know, and it's like, oh, there's some they're not just idiots. I mean, they may be dumb, but they're not stupid. Like they've put some thought into this, and that's sort of that moment we were like, oh, they're like kind of screwed here. Like they're outnumbered.
And then there's that one guy who like crows. Like,
that's it,
like a chicken. Yeah. And it's funny when we finally get to like the big showdown between Ned and his guys, between Rooster. He's like, I aim to kill you, Ned, in 1 minute. And he tries to like ward the other ones off, and he's like, okay, you two, like, I don't want you to get killed unless, you know, you absolutely have to. So you can leave if you want. And they're like, no.
Yeah.
Like, he literally shoots them all. Doesn't get Tom Chaney, or not Tom Chaney. He doesn't get Ned Pepper because Ned shoots his horse.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, I guess this is the end. And then LaBeef shoots him.
That's right.
Like, that's improbable. How'd you do that? And he's like, I don't know. He's
Pretty
like,
good shot. What can I say?
yeah, it's funny how Maddie's like, yeah, you got him. That's one of the few times she actually acts like a kid in the story.
Yeah.
Like that, and like the moment when they're at the campfire and she's like, then y'all want to hear a story? And they're like,
That's right.
No.
They're like, whoa, I'll act out all the parts. And they're just like, would you just like go to bed and shut up, you know?
It's either LaBeef or Rooster just goes, no.
Yeah, that's right.
It is also interesting with LaBeef is that, like, yeah, he's kind of this, like, jerk, you know? You're kind of like, this guy's kind of a dick. But, like, he's not, like, a bad dude at heart. I mean, he's kind of creepy. Moving on from that. You know, I don't want to harp on that too much, but, yeah, he's, you know, he comes around, we'll say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Gets knocked in the head.
It's the Wild West. This is the least of our worries, right?
It takes a lot of physical punishment in the story.
Yeah.
Gets hit in the head by Tom Chaney.
Gets what is it? He bites off part of his tongue.
Yeah.
You know?
He's like, oh damn. He's like, is your tongue still in there? He's like, it's like, dude, what are you doing? Stop that. He gets like shot, or not. I don't think he gets shot, but he gets like dragged around a little bit.
Yeah.
Or is that just a movie? I don't remember. But yeah. Like he definitely is like that guy who like wants to be taken seriously, but like, you know, like he's not Rooster. Like Rooster, it's kind of like that, you know, old master and the kind of newer guy who's kind of like, yeah, you know. And of course, you mentioned that earlier, that really funny dialogue where he goes, he is a crafty one. She goes, I thought him slow-witted myself. He's like, that was his act. It was a damn good one. Like, the dialogue in this is so good.
Yeah.
So Maddie shoots Tom Chaney. She doesn't kill him, though Rooster does. And gets bitten by a snake.
Mm-hmm.
And then gets rescued by Rooster, and he takes her to like this Native American like medicine guy.
Mm-hmm.
And she even like she goes into detail about like, oh, my arm basically just blew up, came black, and they're like, well, we got to take it off, sorry.
Yeah.
And they end up taking it off, and Rooster just leaves after he helps her. Why do you think he does that?
Yeah, well, you know, kind of like what we were saying earlier. It's just kind of like day in the life, on to the next job, on to the next way to make money, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's also not the best one as far as like expressing sentiment or
yes, it's
emotion
true.
necessarily. So
yeah, the only time like he like gets sentimental is when he's drunk.
yeah, that's right. So
because like there's that one part where he gets like hammered and he starts like talking about his like ex-wife, and actually it turns out he has a son, which I don't know if they ever mentioned that in either of the movies, but
not in the one I remember. Yeah,
but in the book he's like, oh yeah, I had the son, you know, and it's kind of a candy ass. And he even goes like, you know, it's probably better that I'm not in his life.
yeah,
it's probably for the best.
Disappointed father thing.
Because she's like, I tried to toughen him up, and he just didn't want to. And I'm like, yeah, well. Yeah. Like, there's that sense with Rooster, like, he's lived a life. He has this kind of... He's a very damaged person in some level, I think. Because we only go off of what Maddie tells us, which is, you know... I mean, I don't know what you think about it.
No, I think that's probably true. Yeah, like you said, it's you get the idea from, like, how she describes him and talks about him, that he's lived before here and has a whole lot of history that's made him, and I mean, for Pete's sake, he's missing an eye, so it's like, well, there's a story right there, you know, literally on your face. which will be giving him a hard time for the one eye is always
Yeah,
is
he's
pretty
like,
funny,
oh,
too.
I bet you didn't see it for your eyes. Oh, I mean your eye. And he goes like, oh yeah, pulls out like a
Was it,
bottle.
was it like
throws
cornbread
in-
or something?
Yeah, cornbread. And Maddie's just like, these two idiots. Like, guys, this is not getting us closer to Tom Chaney. Stop this. And Rooster's like, okay, fine, she's right. Let's go.
Yeah.
So good.
Uh,
And then by the end, a bunch of years go by. She has a little brother. She calls him Little Frank because her dad's name's Frank, but there's like Big Frank and there's Little Frank. Little Frank's her brother. Little Frank's like, hey, Rooster Cogburn is doing this thing at this like rodeo with like Frank James and she ends up going there to go see him, and unfortunately he had just passed a couple days before she could see him. Which kind of ends that's kind of how the book ends. She ends up figuring out that he died. There's nothing really, and again, she's kind of in this weird spot. Like, she's at peace with herself, but there's also like this, there's almost a sense like, I don't need you kind of thing, I guess. There is kind of that hint, there is kind of a hint of bitterness, I guess. I don't know what you think about it.
And don't they have Rooster then buried
Yes.
on like their family land?
Yeah. And in her family
like-
plot, yeah.
She did have a heart after all. You know,
Yeah,
like
she-
that
yeah.
was a sweet moment.
And then she's like, I wonder where LaBeef is. He's probably in like his 70s or 80s now.
Yeah.
Time just gets away from us all. No,
Yeah.
but like there's this real hint, like she goes like, people are always like, oh, what happened with Maddie? She didn't get married or nothing. She's like, well, I don't need to get married, so so there's kind of like this like, I don't need you kind of mentality.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but
Yeah. And I think like it sort of ties into that. That's one of the things I think is one of the strongest parts of this novel, which is you read a lot of books that are written as not just first person perspective, but specifically a first person recounting their story. Like, here, this is me literally telling this to you. Like Name of the Wind is a famous example of this. The Sun Eater books do this. If you're talking like sci-fi fantasy, and with Name of the Wind and Wise Man's Fear, like I like those books just fine, but like Wise Man's Fear is supposed to be told over this is the story that's told over the course of one evening. This is the part of the story he tells, and the audiobook is 45 hours long. It's like, yeah, that ain't being told in one evening. So there's a certain suspension of disbelief in that. This is being embellished. This is not like this literally wouldn't be able to fit into that period of time. And this book really does read like Maddie Ross just sat down with pen and paper or a typewriter or what have you, and this is exactly like what she would have written, exactly in this way, which I like. Even as she is an older person, you get the impression that this is just her telling the story in the way that she wants.
yeah, like she even mentions a couple times like where she talks about like she tried to like submit stuff to like magazines and they were like, no, it's too descriptive. And she's like, well, how do you want it? Because like she gets real, like she can be real testy at times.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think you can read in between the lines a little bit and find some interesting stuff about Maddie as a person and as a character. I think.
Yeah, I'd say so.
But I don't know. It's kind of, I think it's a bit more obvious in like the Coen brothers version where it's kind of like, oh, look how sad and like hollowed out she is, because, vengeance can be bad.
Yeah. Well, and
which is beautifully done. It's beautifully done, but it's kind of like it's much more bitter than I felt the book itself was. Because again,
sure. Well, at the very least, the whole thing will leave its mark on you.
Yeah.
If nothing else.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, and she doesn't like Frank James. She's basically like, "Well, keep your seat, trash." And walks off. I'm like, well, never change, Maddie. Never change.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's but yeah, I mean, like, so like, what do you make of the ending? Like, what do you make of it? Like, do you think it's like satisfying? Is it is there something like you wish was more like drawn out?
No, I think it's paced pretty well as an ending. Like it's good. It's really good. It's not the happiest ending I've ever read, but like, um, you know, The Hobbit doesn't have a very happy ending
That's
either. Like
true.
whatever,
Yeah.
and I love that. So I do think it is a very well written ending to a book. Overall, like I forgot until I reread this, like just how much I enjoy this. Like it doesn't need to be deconstructing a whole genre or reinventing the wheel or anything like that. It's a really well told story by with a strong authorial voice that I like.
Mm.
So yeah, no, I like the ending a good bit. I think it ties the whole thing together well. I think it would be weird if we didn't have that sort of like following up with people. I think that would have been missing if that hadn't been there. If it was just like, and I woke up in the doctor's and my arm was off, and then I went home. The end, So
Yeah,
I like.
mean, I'm not saying she should just go like, well, lost an arm, headed home, it's all
Yeah.
gone. We're all done here. But I thought, I really enjoy True Grit quite a bit. It's a very good book about a young girl's quest for justice / vengeance, whatever that means. Which I think that's also a theme in the book as well. Is what is the difference between justice and vengeance?
Yeah. Yeah. And a part of it may simply be jurisdiction.
That as well.
That Maddie's seeking it because feels like she's been personally wronged, which arguably she has. And Rooster Cogburn, it's literally his job, same with LaBeef.
It's their
so
job
it
to
may not
enforce
be
justice.
Yeah, it may not be a clear line, but yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely the again, which I find really fascinating about this is that like I'll put it this way, I don't know if Maddie always sees the flaws in herself, if that makes sense. She's not a like Nick Carraway, or I haven't read Sun Eater, but I hear there's whinging in there about his personal flaws. Maddie doesn't have that. Because, like, she has that real single-minded determination to get what she wants, but, like, it's also, like, a deterrent. Because, it is that single-minded determination that causes her to lose her arm.
Right, yeah.
I haven't read the Sun Eater books, though, so you can tell me if I'm off base or not.
No, it's pretty precise, Hadrian's got a lot of thoughts about who he's been for, several hundred years.
Yeah, like, she's not, I'll put it this way, she's not the most introspective individual.
Yeah. She's kind of like, she's pretty self-confident, and that might not be for the best.
Yeah, which sometimes that's good, like her skill at haggling is, that's a good thing to have when you're haggling.
Yeah.
When you're rushing into a dangerous situation, it's probably not a good. It's probably not good. Yeah. So maybe
shoot first, ask questions later.
Yeah, pretty much. She's like, I'm gonna get this guy named Rooster Cogburn, who's kind of like the one guy who's just he's the cowboy, if you will. Yeah. No pun intended. But yeah, I kind of get that gist from her, and I think it causes her problems that like she doesn't even realize that she has.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think about that.
No, I think that's probably true. Thankfully, I'm very self-introspective and see all of my flaws very well, so I can judge her perfectly. No, I think it's very human of her.
That's true. Yeah, I don't think any of us are perfect in that way, but it is something I think is kind of interesting that she doesn't quite see those parts in herself.
Yeah.
Because, like, generally in first-person narrations, you get, like, these sometimes anyway, you get, like, these long passages of, like, introspection, and Maddie is not like that at all.
Yeah, she's not really interested in that too much.
Though she'll tell you about why what she's doing is the right thing,
Yeah.
She'll wax poetic about, like, we're going to get Tom Chaney, and that'll be that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's about it in terms of the book. But like, what are your final thoughts about True Grit, Sam?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I hear a lot of people, especially in like fantasy sci-fi circles that we run in, who say, I don't like westerns or it's not a genre for me. And I feel like most people who say that probably have like read maybe one or two or like seen a John Wayne movie and didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, man, like it's not a homogenous thing though. There's a lot of different things that the genre can do, and I think True Grit is just a good like staple that's just very, very well executed. So, I mean, I wouldn't put it in my top 10, but like honestly, it might be in my top 20 favorite books. I'd have to make the list official, but like it might be. So
Yeah, it's definitely like it's a really good it's a good like palate cleanser read because it's very short and it moves very fast. I don't know if I love it as much as like Blood Meridian or like Lonesome Dove for that matter, but I can definitely see why like fantasy fans might like True Grit. On the one hand, it's a quest narrative, and
yeah,
that's kind of the bread and butter of a lot of fantasy books is the quest,
yeah,
with these kind of wacky, eccentric characters. And of course, there's personal loss. So I guess this is like Lord of the Rings. This is like the Hobbit of the West, if you will.
yeah. There you go. Yeah.
I didn't really think of her as like Bilbo Baggins, but that's kind of funny now I think about it. I think maybe Matty Ross is a Hobbit. We'll see.
Yeah, it's like an angry Bilbo Baggins.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like True Grit a lot. I think it's a good I think it's like you said. It's a good if you want to introduce someone to like Western books. I don't think you could go wrong with True Grit.
Yeah.
It's also Lonesome Dove as well, but True Grit is a good place to start as well. Not just saying that because this book takes place in Oklahoma and that's where I live.
Yeah.
Though it's not Oklahoma yet. It's the Indian Territory. So.
When it's one of those novels that is unique in that you can honestly say like it almost is for all ages.
It's
like
true.
you could give this to like a 12-year-old, 14-year-old, and they'd be able to read it and enjoy it. But also like adults will read it and enjoy it as well. So there definitely is a versatility to the age range of people who could read it too.
Yeah, for sure. It really is one of it really is one of those books I think anybody could enjoy.
Yeah.
Even if you're like the highest brow kind of guy, or if you just like to be told an entertaining yarn.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't really go wrong with True Grit. I heard Donna Tartt does the audiobook. I haven't listened to it, but
it's very good. Yeah.
Is it good?
Very good.
Because
yeah.
you're more of an audiobook aficionado than I am. So
yeah, no, she does a very good job reading it.
That's good. Maybe I'll have to listen to that at some point when I read it again. I know you said you had a time limit here, and I don't want to hold you hostage here, but I think we got through everything. So
yeah,
that's the nice thing about True Grit. It's not very long, so won't take like 3 hours to like go through all the stuff we enjoy and whatnot. But anyway, we are in an hour and 2 minutes though. But anyway, I think that's it though.
Yeah, it's a great read. You can read it in a weekend.
Yeah. So thank you, Sam, for coming on, hanging out for a little while.
Yeah,
we were gonna have someone else here. We were gonna have Carol, but Carol Wainwright, good friend of the channel. But he had other things he was doing. He was working today, is what he told me. So. Like, who works on a Saturday? Like, what's wrong with you, Bank? Anyway, yeah, that's about it. Thank you for joining me, Sam.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
as I like to do before the end of these things, if you have social media, feel free and shill it out.
Yeah, I'm here on YouTube as ISamwise. I have Instagram that should be linked in my YouTube stuff, but I had somebody say my link is broken. So I may need to correct that. And then I'm on X as well, where I basically repost videos and repost friends things that I think are funny. And that's about it. So not terribly exciting, but mainly here on YouTube. So.
All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. And if you haven't read True Grit, I don't know what to tell you. Read it on the one hand, but if you've watched the whole video and just watched us spoil the whole thing, I can't really help you. But anyway, until next time, hope you guys enjoyed this. This has been True Grit. So, yeah.